Hey, what's up, Canada and beyond? Welcome back, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, grannies and gators. It is Monday, October 21st. Make sure you smash that thumbs up button or that heart button and give this a share wherever you're tuning in from. We got a lot to cover tonight. I hope you guys had an amazing weekend. It was absolutely fantastic weather where I'm at, and I got a chance to catch up on a lot of things. So I was completely unplugged until late last night and till I dove in, and wow, it's going to be kind of all over the map. We were supposed to have Brett on tonight, but he had to reschedule, so we will have him on this coming Wednesday. Is when we'll be doing that, and that's Brett Hawes from the what's the name of his podcast? I forget the name of his podcast. But it's pretty awesome. Anyways, you'll find it on my Substack, which is where we're going to start tonight. I got a chance to share a milestone with everybody tonight, guys. We've only been on Substack for a few months now. I think I was trying to figure it like 5 months or something, and we broke the 1,000 subscriber mark on Substack. 40 of you have chosen to volunteer an $8 a month payment over there to get the Monday to Friday scoop on everything we cover on our show here every weekday. I know you guys never know what you're going to get, but I try to make sure that it's not stuff that everybody else is covering or it has been beaten to death. We're going to touch some things tonight that people are quite familiar on. We're going to be hitting some of the mainstream media clips you may not have gotten your eyes on. And we're gonna start with Canada's dumpster fire, but we've got a lot to cover tonight, guys. We're going to cover the the fiasco with the election in British Columbia. Isn't it kind of interesting how every time there's an election, there's now a flood that kind of goes with it? Right. So we're not going to be talking about the flooding in British Columbia, but we're going to be talking about what to kind of realistically expect, and understand it's going to be a drawn out process. We're going to hear from some very on over the target gentlemen on this global push for censorship. They want to censor not just countries, but the entire dang internet. So they want to decide what's acceptable for you, the masses. No choice left for y'all. So we're going to cover that. We're going to look at a graph that's going to basically make it real simple for you guys to understand why the climate crisis has absolutely nothing to do with the weather. Some few things on what you are not being told about Agenda 2030, why the Liberals in Canada are about to get wiped out from, and you're going to hear from somebody that knows a lot about it, about getting wiped out too. We're going to have kind of a darker story about the 10 fastest collapsing cities in Canada. With this show goes coast to coast, international. I want you guys to think about how kind of what you might have on deck in whatever particular city you're in, and might have some choices to make if you are in some of these top 10 fastest collapsing cities in Canada. We're going to debunk the use of lethal force on civilians. There's a gross misunderstanding that has been dominating the U.S. news cycle, which is divide and distract. And we're going to hear from Viva Fry on that. And I did save the best for last, though, tonight, guys. I'm not going to leave everybody on a doom loop. I'm going to, I've got a 10-minute clip that is absolutely amazing as far as for putting the mainstream media mercenaries in their place. This was such an awesome job of mocking the mercenaries that I decided to share it with y'all. It made me laugh this afternoon. So I thought that'd be a great way to end the show off with, I guess, a couple of other little announcements of things coming up. But as always, guys, Substack, as we said, the fastest growing platform for What's Up Canada. And the fastest way to find that is on my website at whatsupcanada.org. I haven't refreshed it lately, so did a reboot, so it'll pop up. But this is where we're going to start today, with a 5-minute clip on maybe some things that people aren't necessarily thinking about when it comes to the crisis of another botched election in British Columbia. We talked a little bit about this last week. These guys just implemented Dominion voting machines, and now we've got crises on recounts and all in all, just general shenanigans. And how does this bode well for the grand scheme of things? So we're going to hear from Tom Mulcair, who, like I said, has ridden the wipeout bus before in his political career. So this is going to kind of explain things that nobody else is really bringing up except Tom would have, having lived from the inside. Yeah, a lot is changing, and it has a lot to do with what's going on in the U.S. Kamala is absolutely imploding. Even Joe Biden officially announced today that he's done. He's not stumping for her anymore. He's not attending any events. He's not endorsing her for anything. So she's on her own. So yeah, this is where we're going to start today. I see your comment here, Lone Arnie. Shouldn't we be watching bricks? Dude, I only got 2 eyes. That's what we try and cover on Friday show, the best of our ability. I'll see if I can't put something together on that later this week. So probably should be watching bricks. I've been watching bricks for a very long time, and that's absolutely going to have an impact here too. But these are the fires that are going on in our yard right now, so we're going to hear from Tom for a few minutes
to discuss what's happening in BC as well as New Brunswick. I'm joined by Tom Mulcair. He is our CTV News political commentator and the former leader of the NDP. Good Monday morning to you, Tom. So let's start with the BC election. Results are delayed. We won't know probably for another week who will be the new premier. What do you make of this airtight race?
Absolutely fascinating. And it's the second time in a decade where the Green Party apparently will be holding the balance of power. And I say apparently because, as you just correctly pointed out, there is a compulsory recount the minute there are fewer than 100 votes separating the first and second place. But in my experience, it's quite rare that a judicial recount changes anything. We actually won. The NDP won a seat back from the Conservatives in 2011 during the Orange Wave in Quebec by going before a judge and showing that some of the votes had been thrown out illegally, but we were talking just about a handful of votes as a difference. To turn these around, and
he was NDP.
Higher than that. To turn these around, you'd either need somebody who had illegally rejected ballots or somebody had simply miscounted. So it's unlikely to change, in my experience. Doesn't mean that the lawyers who are going to be arguing that aren't going to be doing their best, but at the same time,
sound familiar, PDS.
On the one hand, we're seeing the same type of urban-rural divide that we've seen in other.
This is an important point.
Go to Quebec. Francois Legault absolutely dominates in the rural areas outside of Montreal. Can't get anybody elected just about in Montreal. So, which is, the greater Montreal area is about half the province. So it's a very interesting thing to watch. Very similar. The Conservatives, they're completely ruling the roost in rural BC, outside of the big city of Vancouver and Victoria. So it's something to see. It's also noteworthy that the Greens, with those 2 seats holding the balance of power, it happened to John Horgan as well. This is a very important issue for a lot of people in BC. They've watched David Eby's NDP on issues of fossil fuels, for example, make the province's economy more and more dependent on fossil fuels and natural gas in particular, even though they fought hard against the Trans Mountain Pipeline, but it's there now, and Trudeau bought it and has put it through. But more importantly than that, they've actually said that they were going to step back from BC's carbon tax. Now, BC's had a carbon tax, was way ahead of the curve, way ahead of other provinces on a carbon tax, and they said that they're going to go back on that if Poilievre ever removes the carbon tax nationally. So that, for a lot of people, was a failure. on a key environmental issue. And I think that David Eby was squeezed a bit by a resurgent Conservative Party and by some members of his base saying, hold on, that's not what we thought we were about. And the Green Party holding the balance of power. Well, it'll be another way of holding their feet to the fire on climate.
Okay, so just to be super clear then for our viewers, when we're talking about an alliance, we're talking the Greens and Conservatives, or the Greens and
no.
So we're going to be talking a little bit more throughout the week about the climate corruption within government, exactly as it applies to things like you were saying here, PDS, the Green Party and the climate terrorists. That is the weak link in a lot of this, and this fight isn't over. This is just the beginning of what's going to get very, very interesting. There's some stories that have been waiting to be told, and it's almost the time to get them out.
I don't think that there's a snowball's chance that the Greens would ever support the Conservatives, because even though the Conservative leader did everything he could to say that he's not a climate change denier, he's denying that you have to do anything about climate change, which is pretty much the same thing. So I think that the Greens know that they can probably influence David Eby's positions on these crucial issues
Bingo.
for future generations, and I think that that's where their support will go.
They're playing the same tired extortion game.
In any event, Eby's going to be in a very uncomfortable position, because anytime it's that close, Paul Martin went through this, vote by vote, day by day. All you need is for two people to get sick, and all of a sudden your government could be defeated.
All right, we got to talk about New Brunswick.
So before we get to that, there's all kinds of shenanigans that are coming out. Exactly, the numbers didn't add up. There was reports of certain communities, areas, and regions that weren't allowed to vote at all. Everything was shut down for some of the lamest excuses. At one place that attempted to bring in call-in voting. So this is they tried too hard, I think, on this one, and it just isn't going to go away so easy. So yeah, there's a lot more going on, a lot more to come out, and I think the genie's out of the bottle when it comes to that, and there's definitely going to be some changes going on here. I think when the dust settles, I think you're going to end up seeing, though, regardless of it, I think that Conservatives will still be the ruling government, but they're going to have their hands tied exactly by the Greens, like Jugmeat does for the Liberals and everybody else. So it's going to be that quid pro quo between whoever benefits the Greens the most, the climate cult the most, the eco-terrorists the most. So here's why I wanted to focus on this and particularly bring this clip to highlight that, because I am not done with that eco-terrorist cult and the corruption and the foreign influence and meddling that goes along with that. Big question. When you look at the dumpster fire that is Canada, they squeal about all of these foreign interference things. Yet we have so many of these dual citizenship. When does somebody ask about Elizabeth May being a foreign influence under the power and instruction of Palestine now, that is going to be the ruling the head of the Green Party and now holding to account? Is that really what you guys want in BC? Because that's really what it's going to look like to the rest of the world real soon when we start raising the alarm bells all over about an American head of a ridiculous party, a drunken, obnoxious fool that absolutely openly endorses terrorism and publicly admits to taking orders from a hostile terrorist regime in Palestine. That is politics in British Columbia, folks. No, you can't even make that shit up, right? So, this is the part that triggers me about the squealing about the foreign interference in our democracy. This is a shining example of the joke that statement is at this point in time. So, yeah, going to be hear me doing a lot of squealing about. If you want to talk, if you want to squeal about foreign interference and meddling, let's start with some of these terrorists in our government, some of these foreign-born nationals that are taking orders from terrorists. We got a lot to talk about, Canada, but a little bit from the East Coast.
You see this race being as airtight? Will we know who the premier is tomorrow at this time?
I think we will, but you might have a few close votes as well. What was most interesting was to see the Liberal Party leader, Susan Holt, trying to pull herself as much away from Justin Trudeau as she possibly could. Just saying, oh, I don't know who that guy is in Ottawa. I'm the Liberal leader here in New Brunswick. And so if she were to win, Trudeau would see it as a win, but anybody who's been following the election knows that if she wins, it'll be despite Justin Trudeau, not thanks to Justin Trudeau. With regard to Blaine Higgs, his positions were becoming sharper and sharper on the ideological right of the spectrum. He lost several members of his cabinet who didn't go along with him when he wanted to. When you start targeting, LGBTQ people, because you want to have a fight over pronouns in schools and protecting young people who are already in a very fragile situation, which is what most people want to do. He decided to use this as a political tool. And when that type of human
that's his job.
Football, a lot of people take a dim view of it, but he's done a very good job on the economy. He's had balanced budgets, if not surpluses, year after year. So he would become the first person since Frank McKenna to win 3 consecutive mandates if he were to win. But I do know that the Liberals are putting on a very strong fight. So we'll see how it turns out in the end.
All right.
So that's from the east from the west to the east. The point that is the underlying foundation of both sides of these elections is that a little bit of common sense is coming back into the rooms. Interesting, a comment here from Canterbury. I agree, and this is the point that Mulcair brought up there, that the municipalities, the big urban centers, end up being, and this is one of the flaws of Canada, where I think 85 or 90% of our population lives within 100 miles of the U.S. border, that it creates these regions that ultimately end up with power without being necessarily anywhere close to representative of the territory and province. And this is where it's time to adapt, improvise, and overcome. And maybe as the communities are starting to gain their power back and eliminating it there, the communities are going to need to come together, not just like the people in the communities, but now the communities needs to organize against the urban centers and take it next level in how we do politics. So this is from Michael Schellenberger. If you don't know who Michael Schellenberger is, he was one of them who blew the whistle after Elon Musk opened up the Twitter files on the corruption and the censorship and the abuse of the media platforms and yada, 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 yada. Everybody knows that story, but he's kind of got he's got a really good explanation, a way to explain what is the goal of all of that before, why were they doing it, why are we where we're at now, and what they have planned next. This is going to be shocking for some. We've screamed about C11, C18, C63. People weren't listening. I don't know how far it's going to have to go before folks will start to listen. That's some of the things that keep me up at night. So we're going to be kind of in a few different places over the next few stories, see if there's Slovakia, I think, is the country that is now calling it a genocide. That mRNA story is not over and done with either. The big thing I see happening here with all of these political systems, Trudeau, these tyrannies evolving. They keep going to the same tired old playbook, which makes them 100% predictable, and they are overconfident, and their egos and hubris absolutely destroy them. And count that factor into everything that we're going to kind of cover here tonight, because their hubris is their undoing, and they don't even see the wall coming, that the radical, insane Fourth Reich or fascists or communists, whatever you want, Marxists, whatever you want to understand them as, they're all tools from the same dark side of the universe, and they are hitting a wall, and they got no other idea of what to do except go back to the same panic playbook. And understand that, a big part of the psyops that's been waged against us for years here now, we talk about the propaganda, the fake news, the lies, the gaslighting, the astroturfing, and the censorship, like they are two different things, but they are not. Ladies and gentlemen, they are the two symbiotic entities that allow for these radical ideologies to take over, whether it's Marxism, communism, fascism, Islamism. These are the two things: propaganda and censorship. One does not work without the other. So when they're jacking up the gaslighting and the lies and the media crap, they have to also jack up the censorship. And this is kind of what they got in store for us all next.
What we see these guys doing in terms of their censorship and disinformation efforts, it's at another level. We discovered an early censorship initiative that had been authorized or started, it wasn't completely clear, by the Department of Homeland Security. And it was incredibly sophisticated. It was also incredibly brutal, because it would talk about destroying people's reputations, destroying their characters, deplatforming them, debanking them. We have got to draw a line in the sand and say, absolutely not. Parliaments should not be passing legislation that give this level of control to such a small group of people, given what's at stake, which in my view is not just our freedom of speech in any single country, but it's really global control of all social media platforms is at serious risk. It's at risk of being controlled by governments, by what you might call the deep state, by these military intelligence and security agencies. And that's it. If you lose free speech, you don't have democracy, you don't have any of the other freedoms. And it's one that we see happening all over the world: Ireland, Scotland, Europe, Germany, France, Czech Republic, Britain, Canada, the United States, and obviously, as you know, also in Australia, which is a country that we're extremely concerned about. And in all these places, we see a lot of disturbing similarities. I consider what's happening in Australia one of the most urgent cases in the world, right up there with what's happening in Brazil. When we look at Australia, there's so much happening in your country.
Me too, Mo. Me too.
Feels both alarming and familiar. I mean, the first thing is, of course, they don't call it censorship, so they invent these Orwellian justifications: counter disinformation, counter misinformation. Who could possibly defend hate speech? Who could possibly defend misinformation? To distract the attention from the censorship. But you work at a think tank. I'm a journalist.
Yeah.
I write books.
It's his ring light glowing.
A quarter of which are footnotes. We're absolutely obsessed with facts and getting.
Yes, please do, guys. This platform doesn't survive or thrive without you. So thank you.
But we don't advocate censorship. We fight misinformation with accurate information. It would never occur to us to try to go behind the scenes and get special powers from the government to censor the people that we disagree with or disallow them from expressing their views. Facebook was captured a couple of years ago. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg came out recently complaining about the censorship, especially some of Brad. This model of
isn't that funny? You just brought that up there, Mark Zuckerberg complaining. All of a sudden, he went from perpetrator to victim. And here we are, still streaming to Facebook, quote unquote, streaming to Facebook, but out of 37,000 followers, not 100, not 100 get notifications, might get 1,000 views. We are so deeply suppressed on Facebook, but yet he's the victim. This is the kind of, as much as he's exposing it, I got to give him props. He is in his heart, he's a traditional, Democrat liberal, fighting for freedoms, but you can kind of hear it. But yeah, so no, I don't buy that Mark Zuckerberg complaining, and that's a trigger point for me.
Government favored fact checkers decide what's true and false, and then tell Facebook who to censor it. That's been in place for years, and that's exactly what we saw in 1984. Is what we've seen in totalitarian societies, whether Nazism or communism. They can't stand that they control and that they drive censorship on all these other platforms. They must have control of X. They want total control. And if you like, what is the meaning of totalitarianism? It's the demand for and it's the creation of total state control over the society, over the culture, over the conversation. They also talk about media literacy, which is basically teaching kids in schools to accept as
To lie to their parents, hide things from their parents, and a whole bunch of other stuff that creates these cyborg clone troopers that think we are crazy.
as gospel, whatever the mainstream corporate news media, or in Australia, ABC, your state media, or the government sources say. So instead of critical thinking, which comes out of the University of Chicago 100 years ago, it's John Dewey. It's this global movement to teach kids how to be critical thinkers, including asking hard questions of the government. That the government has an interest potentially in lying to the public. They want to replace that with something they call media literacy, which is basically teaching, brainwashing and thought control and obedience and authoritarianism to students. They can't seem to let it go. They have to have control over X, and they have made clear that they will not rest, that it is a must-have for them, not a nice-to-have. We discovered an early censorship initiative that had been authorized or started, it wasn't completely clear, by the Department of Homeland Security. And they had a little handbook they created for people to wage information warfare. And it clearly came from, well, it did come from a military contractor. And so it felt as though it came out of really what the CIA had done in places like Arab Spring, the color revolutions. And it was incredibly sophisticated. It was also incredibly brutal because it would talk about destroying people's reputations, destroying their characters, deplatforming them, debanking them, which of course we then saw Justin Trudeau do with these trucker protests against COVID in Canada. And so you see these really hardline tactics that clearly had been used in rougher parts of the world, the Middle East, North Africa, Arab Spring, Eastern Europe, and seeing them turned against their own domestic populations. In many moments I get chills up my spine, thinking about military, intelligence, security officials, officers, agents.
Does anybody trust any of Canada's alphabet agencies?
Experts, whatever, and some of these people are cognitive scientists. PsyOps is like an old-fashioned thing. What these guys are doing is so next level. I mean, the Hunter Biden laptop story I told you about, they're trying to figure out how to program people before things become a story. If your instinct is not that, your instinct is to silence those people, I would suggest that you have not evolved to where you need to be in the history of the Western Enlightenment. We humans are, we have an irrational animal side and a rational, spiritual side, and they're often a tug of war, and it's that really base irrational side that just says, oh, I don't want to hear that, and that person must be silenced. There's a war between those two energies in us, in our civilization.
I think he absolutely nails it. These people, they shut off on us, and they don't want to hear about the truth. And because they are the government and they wear suits and they exempt themselves from prosecution, they get away with it. And people, they just don't want to hear it. They just don't want to hear about it. So 100% on point with that. But at the end of the day, what he was basically doing there was tying in if I had to put one label on it, the Online Harms Act, that whatever it's called in all of the respective countries, it's the same thing, and it's an absolute control over the internet news, who's able to access information, where, how much, how long, what is your social credit opinion score worth. So this fight for free speech is not just ours alone, as bad as it is here in Canada, probably on par with North Korea. But this is the one of the existential threats. And this, when I said I was going to talk a little bit more about climate terrorism, this is what I was talking about. This is from Dr. Matthew Willicke. This is why many people are convinced there is a climate crisis. It has nothing to do with the weather, but how the media portrays the crisis. So now this graph is an accumulation as fraction of outlet total words in months. So in 3 months, accumulated across these agencies, 160 times more discussion about climate change, global warming, and climate crisis, 160 times more words about that than there was gain of function research, gain of function experiments, enhanced potential pandemic pathogen research, enhanced potential pandemic pathogens, function enhancing research, dual use research of concern, gopher PPP research, none of that. And so that would also be, what are we, over nuclear war and nuclear conflict? Look at the difference there. So this is where climate change comes from, right? And you want to, they don't, compared to conversation or words about AI alignment, AI safety, risks, safe AI risk management, friendly AI governance, alignment research, trustworthy. No, it doesn't even make it onto the charts. So guys, who is the enemy? Who is the biggest enemy? This is why they work so hard to silence this platform, because we don't agree or talk about any of this crap here on the far right or the live, but we don't damn skippy talk about all of the rest of this and the hazards and the news and the truth and the reality about all of that. So I'm going to make sure that this graph and chart is in the Substack tomorrow for everybody as well. So now this is a 12-minute clip. It's a little bit longer, done by GB News. And I actually watched the whole thing earlier, and I thought, okay, this is digestible and a great way to bring up the subject about who, because you guys all know who are the portrayers, are, the purveyors, the creators, the people that manifest this crap right here that you're going to hear about. You know who they are.
UN's Pact for the Future sounds all lovely and warm and collaborative. Who wouldn't want to think about the future and a harmless pact to help protect humanity, all with your best interests at heart? Call me a skeptic.
It's all for
I think
you.
we need to dig a little deeper into this. So this pact was announced on the first official day of the UN's Summit of the Future. Perhaps it is going to make all our lives.
You guys will be quite surprised to hear what she actually opens up with on GB News.
Better, or perhaps it marks a
I'll shut up
significant
for a few
step
minutes.
towards a technocratic vision of global governance. The Summit of the Future, which in itself is a weirdly broad title because there wouldn't be much demand for a summit discussing what's just happened in the past, was held at the beginning of the 79th session of the annual UN General Assembly. This summit has been in the making since at least 2022. It's following repeated calls by UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres to accelerate the completion of Agenda 2030. These were the goals set out by the UN in 2015. Now, Agenda 2030 basically underpins everything that is happening in towns and cities all across the world. And what
Here, our politicians call it the Paris Agreement.
once you understand that,
The
much
Trudeau,
like,
the Pierre
even
signed
here in
too.
the UK, begins to make perfect sense at a time when it can feel that nothing makes any bloody sense. Agenda 2030 consists of 17 sustainability goals. So that means that elected and some not so elected politicians came together and agreed that if only every website, open your new mobile phone, and there it is in the apps, even though you didn't ask for it. But of course, who wouldn't want to achieve these noble aims of eradicating poverty and so on? It all sounds so lovely and benign. You would be a very brave leader to stand up at a UN assembly and say, actually, I quite like poverty and inequality, or I don't like poverty and inequality, but I do also have an obligation to make decisions which help people who voted for me in my own country too. And that, above all these lofty global aims, will be foremost in my mind. But as it is also lovely and benign, this Pact for the Future sits alongside two other complementary documents. They are the Global Digital Compact and the Declaration on Future Generations. So what exactly is this Pact for the Future? Well, according to the United Nations, it covers a wide array of themes, including peace and security, sustainable development, climate change, digital cooperation, aka clamping down on free speech, human rights, gender equality, youth and future generations. It also focuses on transforming global governance to better address these challenges. Global governance, you say? Well, I didn't vote for anyone's prime minister but my own, and I certainly don't want one that is imposed upon me from another country.
Right.
Have a look at a clip from the UN General Assembly where the Pact for the Future was adopted.
The commitments embodied in the Pact and its annexes reflect the collective will of member states and must guide our actions and encourage us to promote international peace and security, invigorate implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals, foster just and inclusive societies, and ensure that technologies always serve the common good of humankind. We must move forward together in a spirit of solidarity and multilateral cooperation.
As you can see, world leaders are, on the surface at least, committed to this vision. But it is not possible to achieve these utopian ideals without a deliberate, perhaps forceful, redistribution of food, goods, property, and rights. Just like good old-fashioned communism, the ambition for equal outcome for everyone always results in the very rich getting supremely richer, the very poor perhaps being lifted up a little, but the billions in the middle getting colder, poorer, hungrier, and enslaved within their digital prison. Just as communism was never really about equality, this new version, which is deceptively called stakeholder capitalism, is not about equality either. This is Klaus
I love
Schwab's
this lady.
"You will own nothing and you will be happy" mantra. No, you won't. You'll be miserable, you'll be weak, you'll be obedient, but hopefully sufficiently angry to try and break free. The UN's Agenda 2030 is all about control. Leaders lacking empathy are not troubled by reducing humanity to a mere data set upon which they can keep tabs. And at that point, we, the people, are nothing more than a commodity which can be monetized. Will the people of the world comply with
Bingo.
this democratic vision, or will we
Every
rebel?
breath we
Can
take is
even
tokenized.
find a different way to function outside of a digital prison? The Pact for the Future and its complementary documents are on the surface designed to create a more interconnected and cooperative world. The Global Digital Compact claims to aspire to making the use of digital technologies more responsible and inclusive. Who wouldn't want that? They claim that they are concerned about digital privacy, cybersecurity, and the digital divide. But
We all know that
yeah,
was just a
that's
lie.
trying to
Who's
control
your daddy?
fake
Who's
knowledge.
your daddy?
The
Uncle,
online
close
world,
your daddy.
every road leads to the suppression of free speech and the ludicrous idea that someone somewhere in a lavishly glazed office can decide what is factual information and what is misinformation. The Declaration on Future
And we're not
Generations
allowed to give them the
cleverly
missing
asks
information.
who could possibly resist measures that would be required to protect the planet for their children and grandchildren. And yes, of course,
Maybe the
we
missing
need to leave
information.
this world in a better state than when we found it. But this has all been decided on the publicly indisputable assumption that there is consensus on, for example, man-made climate change due to
Bingo.
carbon emissions.
Because 21st century challenges
Mixed in with some
require 21st
technocracy
century
and
solutions, frameworks that are networked and inclusive, and that draw on the expertise of all of humanity.
we're going to talk about Candy
I called
Boy
for this
Mark.
summit because our world is heading off the rails, and we need tough decisions to get back on track.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has been a strong advocate for these initiatives. Let's hear what he had to say about the importance of these documents.
Conflicts are raging and multiplying. From the Middle East to Ukraine and Sudan,
Not yet today,
with
but I
no
will.
end in sight. Our collective security system is threatened by geopolitical divides, nuclear posturing, and the development of new weapons and theaters of war. Resources that could bring opportunities and hope are invested
Exactly.
and destruction.
Nobody does.
Open pathways to new possibilities and opportunities.
Nuremberg
Our
2.0.
world
Let's
is
get
going
started.
through a time of turbulence and a period of transition. But we cannot wait for perfect conditions. We must take the first decisive steps towards updating and reforming international cooperation and make it more networked, more fair, and more inclusive now. And
Now.
today, thanks to your efforts, we have. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the Pact for the Future, the Global Digital Compact, and the Declaration on Future Generations open pathways to new possibilities and opportunities.
Guterres emphasizes the need for urgent action and global cooperation to address the challenges we face. The race is on to save the planet and possibly line the pockets of vested interests in captured regulatory bodies, made up of a very small group of experts rather than through any democratic process.
No.
Thankfully, Agenda 2030 has already sparked
The good
debate and protest
mafiosos.
in various parts of the world, despite it getting almost no mentions in the Western, particularly the British mainstream media. The alternative social news media is awash with awareness. Millions of you are concerned about the potential loss of national sovereignty and also individual freedom.
But we don't count.
Agenda 2030's commitment to homes being given to climate migrants will make small boat illegal migration look utterly trivial. This powerful technocracy might prioritize so-called efficiency. They might persuade countries to be responsible over issues such as cleaner seas, education for girls under otherwise medieval regimes, and even toilets in remote African villages. But it is so obvious in their literature. Have a look. It's in your phone, it's in your apps, that the stuff which really excites them is not the expensive projects like dredging plastic from oceans or building toilets for Maasai tribes. It's the profitable stuff. It's the wind turbines. It's the solar farms currently being built on top of beautiful, natural, life-giving farms. It is surveillance on the
They don't
streets.
want
It's the
to.
highly profitable diversity and inclusion ticket, which perhaps contains a blatant contradiction between the UN's ambition to empower women and girls, but also heavily promote the trans ideology, which can steal spaces from those women and girls. We all need to become hyper-vigilant to the 2030 UN agenda. Its endgame is control. Where and when you travel, what you eat, who you can see, what you can say. But all is not lost. The Dutch farmers and the Canadian truckers showed what can be done when people come together, driven by the need to put individual freedoms first. The freedom to transact, to trade, to refuse an injection that they didn't want in the case of the truckers, even just to grow the food that the farmers want to grow in the way that they want to grow it. This sort of collective has immense power. Once a group of people with megalomaniacal drives and vested profit motives control the food, they control the people. So stay informed about these developments and understand their implications. Engage in discussions, ask questions, make your voice heard. Chat about it at the bus stop. Show your mate down the pub that this agenda is already hidden in their handset. Ask how they feel about the erosion of their freedom from a small number of power trippers eating canapes in Europe. There are many ways to get involved. Attend public forums, vote in elections, join advocacy groups, and stay active in your community. By participating in these processes, we can help ensure that our future is shaped by you, the people, which is exactly how it should be.
Now, she makes my heart go pitter patter, and this was 3 days ago, guys, and it's had for almost 500,000 views. So, she's 100% on point, and it's up to us now. The jig is up, and they are. You don't have to be afraid of recognizing and initiating the conversation, because their power is almost gone. And it's not, when I remember, I've been saying that the rest of the world was waiting for us to do it again. I think that's, kind of what she's saying is, thank you to us. And now it's the farmers, and it's the farmers' turn. And we talk about Bill C-293, Bill C-63. Guys, we all got to get behind this. And this is all that I can do. This is everything that I can do, and try and give you guys a tool and the connection and the people and the community to fight that fight. And they're on the ropes. And here's just a little bit more gas on the dumpster fire of the Liberals right now. And this is gonna, you can check this one off on the good news list for a Monday.
There are reports of an alleged revolt taking place within the Trudeau Liberal caucus. Now, the Prime Minister is losing 4 more cabinet ministers who've
We
decided
talked about
not to
this.
seek re-election. They are Marie-Claude Bobeau, Carla Qualtrough, Dan Bandel, and Philomena Tassi. So what is going on within the Liberal Party? Dan McTague may have some answers for us. He's a former Liberal MP who served under both Jean Chrétien and Paul Martin. He joins us now from Milton, Ontario. Dan, the 4 cabinet ministers who are not seeking re-election say they're leaving for very personal reasons, and it has absolutely nothing to do with Justin Trudeau.
Nothing to do with Justin.
I mean, yeah, I believe that. Look, there's 16 Liberal MPs, including 4
They still have to live in their communities.
And I think there's a wider sense among the 152 Liberal MPs that their chances of winning are maybe 1 in 6. If I look at the numbers very correctly, every poll's indicating no more than 40 to 50 will be returned, maybe even less than that. So we're looking at an evisceration of the Liberal Party on a scale we haven't seen since 2011 when I was defeated. And possibly
another one that knows the feeling of the skid.
It's likely that the Liberal Party will wind up 3rd, maybe even 4th in the next federal election.
Obliterated.
It demonstrates the extent to which this party and its caucus was so loyal to the leader that they didn't tell him the truth last year when he should have left. Now it may very well be too late. It doesn't matter who comes in, they will inherit this poison chalice.
Dan, could we actually see Justin Trudeau step down as party leader, maybe the party appointed new leader to help them rebuild before the next federal election? And if so, who would Trudeau's successor be?
Very hard to say. There are a lot of people whose names have been bandied about. We know Chrystia Freeland. We know Mark Carney. There may be a few others that are, out in the thicket, but it doesn't really matter at this stage. We're looking at a scenario where it could be very much a John Turner or even a Kim Campbell moment for the Liberal Party. I'm not unconvinced the Liberal Party may very well cease to exist well into after this next election, and may have to recover under a very different name with a very different set of policies. Certainly policies that will bring them back to the center, which they abandoned under Justin Trudeau. In 2011, the party went down to 3rd place. It would have taken a couple of elections to rebuild. Instead, it got a quick fix with the name Trudeau, very appealing to some people in urban areas across Canada. But you can see that is short-lived. And now that he's out of the way, or potentially out of the way, there really isn't much in the way of a succession plan for the Liberal Party. I think it's going to be a number of very tough years with very limited number of seats in the House of Commons.
Now, the latest polls have the Conservatives with at least a 20% lead over the Liberals in many ridings across the country. The Tories are even leading in many parts of Toronto, which has traditionally been a Liberal stronghold. Does any of this surprise you?
It surprises me historically, but it doesn't surprise me realistically. I speak to a lot of people and they're very upset. Their standard of living has been badly compromised. People believe that the country is broken, and they also aren't prepared to let Mr. Trudeau and company off scot-free. They believe that a lot of things that have happened, from migration to rising crime to unaffordability as a result of the government meddling with green taxes, has contributed in no small way to the decline in Canada. And I think Canadians are now finally holding this leader's feet to the fire.
Thanks so much for your time.
So that was Liberals talking about Trudeau. They're the ones that are done with Trudeau. So some great comments here that I wanna pull up from Focus. No, there is no chance of them coming back. The green slush fund is absolutely blowing up. There is a lot more coming out about that. Absolutely, he was a bad Liberal, got skidded out like Mulclair did a long time ago, and that's why it's great to hear these guys fessing up. They're not even covering for their own party anymore. So these are the depths of how, the reality check of how decimated is the party is going to be, because no, Sockboy will not leave. We'll see how this caucus goes on Wednesday, if they can coax him there or go into a full revolt. But here's the thing, guys. The people that are fleeing the Liberal Party now are the old stock Canadians, the ones that are, the foreign born, foreign influenced, and criminals getting a new life. A couple of convicted terrorists in there. They're not going anywhere, guys. And with the people like the likes of Elizabeth May taking their orders from Palestine, who do you think is going to be the competition for those new seats in those high demographic areas that are outside and have no representation, reflection in reality of the rural parts of our province? So this is where they're kind of setting us up here for a city versus country war of ideologies, for lack of a better term. This is a one that I was going to pull up at some point here, not necessarily that clip, but good point, Travis. That was the point I wanted to get to. If Trudeau gets back and isn't gone this week, he may prorogue Parliament, and what that means is he gets off the hook. Parliament's been shut down for 2 weeks now. Trudeau just got back from gallivanting. If he prorogues Parliament, he can shut it down. But every bill dies. Bill C-63, Bill C-293. So he is busy blackmailing, and this is why they rammed through that pharmacare bill last week. It's nothing but an extortion exchange at this point with who's left before it all goes sideways. And yeah, taxing, bullying, 100%. I agree with you on this, Carly. The Green Slush Fund is the very tip. I want to get Michael Barrett on. If anybody has an opportunity to help me with that, that would be greatly appreciated. I know he just talked on the David Creighton show the other day, and he's got a lot to say. We're not going to get to that clip tonight. Exactly what I was referring to. Elizabeth May is basically throwing her political support behind them publicly. Well, at 50 seats left, that's basically non-party status. They will never recover. The Generation Alpha will never forgive them. Um, we do have to worry about them getting to royal assent. That is why the sooner, if he's going to prorogue it, let's do it now. We got to, continue to come to life from the grassroots level against the bills that are there, the things, the weapon, the what we can address these bills. There's the other one, there's so many, these insane bills. You go to jail if you support or promote fossil fuels, um, to the gulag if you don't if you don't agree with the political parties. Um, yeah, we're almost there. Ah, this has gotten way longer than I thought it was going to be, guys. All right, well, looks like we're going to deliver as promised. We're going to be probably an extra half hour, so buckle up. Wanted folks to maybe, if you live in some of these cities, let me know. Maybe there's a way we can organize or gets together or develop some community for the people that are in these cities. But this was 2 weeks ago, the 10 fastest collapsing cities in Canada. And bear with me. Like I said, I'm not going to leave everybody on the doom and gloom note. We've got at least 10 minutes of really funny stuff and some good news for our friends and neighbors to the south. I my I had planned all night to be sitting here with a package of McDonald's fries tonight, just in tribute to not our tater tots, talking tater tot Christian Freeland or little potato Justin, but the mega fries in the U.S. So, but we're going to take a look at these top 10 fastest collapsing cities, and I'd like to see and read your thoughts along the way as we go here. If you live in these cities, tell us, is this how accurate is this video?
Closer to home than you think. Number 10, Sudbury, Ontario. Let's start with Sudbury, a city that was once the pride of Canada's mining industry. For decades, Sudbury thrived thanks to its massive nickel reserves. The economy boomed, jobs were plentiful, and the city's future seemed bright, but that was then. Now Sudbury is facing a very different reality. As the global demand for minerals shifts and mining becomes more automated, Sudbury's economic engine is sputtering. Fewer people are needed to do the work that once employed thousands, and the job market is shrinking fast. If you've been watching the city's economy closely, you'll know that unemployment is rising and it's getting harder and harder to find stable work in the region. But the real issue?
Correct.
Young people are leaving in droves. Sudbury's youth are heading to bigger cities where the opportunities are better, and it's leaving behind an aging population that's struggling to keep up. And when a city starts losing its young, innovative workforce, it's a huge red flag for the future. To make matters worse, the cost of living is rising. Housing prices are going up,
Tom.
while wages remain flat, squeezing the people who are left behind. Sudbury is trying to diversify into healthcare and education.
Correct.
But let's be honest,
He's getting
it's not
cornered.
happening fast enough. The city is still far too dependent on its mining routes, and unless it can make a major shift soon, Sudbury's decline is likely to continue. If you're living in Sudbury, you've probably seen the signs: fewer jobs, fewer young people, and an uncertain future. Number 9, St. John, New Brunswick. Next up, we have St. John, a city that was once a powerhouse on Canada's east coast. Known for its bustling ports and thriving industries, St. John used to be a hub of opportunity.
Guess that one's right.
But over the past few decades, things have taken a dramatic turn. One of the biggest issues facing St. John is the collapse of its manufacturing sector.
Yeah, this is 2 weeks old, this video.
Employed thousands have either closed their doors or drastically reduced operations, leaving a huge hole in the local job market. As the industrial backbone crumbled, so did the economy, forcing many families to leave in search of better opportunities elsewhere. On top of that, St. John's population is shrinking. Younger generations are leaving, and the city is struggling to attract new talent. Those who stay are dealing with aging infrastructure and fewer job prospects, making it harder to build a sustainable future. It's almost like the city is stuck in a cycle that's tough to break, losing people, losing jobs, and losing hope. And let's not forget about the housing crisis. While home prices haven't skyrocketed like in bigger cities, St. John's economic struggles mean that even affordable housing can feel out of reach for many residents. Combine that with a local government that's struggling to fund necessary improvements, and it's clear the challenges are piling up. St. John is fighting to regain its footing, but right now it's a city in decline, one that's finding it harder and harder to bounce back. Number 8, Thunder Bay, Ontario. Now let's talk about Thunder Bay, a city that's been feeling the strain of economic hardship for years. Once a thriving industrial hub, Thunder Bay relied heavily on its resource-based industries, especially forestry and shipping. But as demand for these industries has dropped, so has the city's economic stability. One of Thunder Bay's biggest problems is that it hasn't been able to replace lost industries with new sustainable sources of income. The forestry sector has been shrinking, and with fewer jobs available, people, especially young professionals, are leaving the city in search of better opportunities. Thunder Bay's population is slowly declining, and it's starting to feel like the city is stuck in a downward spiral. What's more concerning is the city's rising crime rates. With fewer jobs and economic insecurity, Thunder Bay has seen an increase in crime, further driving people away. The situation has been tough for residents, and local officials are struggling to find effective solutions. Then there's the housing market.
I wanted to, this sounds like propaganda. This is one of those artificially generated voices. There is so much of that out there nowadays that it's these things that are narration projects are being done with artificial voices, and I agree. I don't care for them. This one, though, I kind of thought the subject matter warranted a discussion because we all know where the suffering is coming from in all of these cities, and we've all got people all over the country. So I just trying to connect people and find out how much of this is true wherever they're at. Maybe we can do a little bit more to connect them. And once in a while, we gotta listen to a bot voice. So that's kind of why we got this one tonight.
While it's more affordable than in major Canadian cities, the income gap is widening, making it harder for lower income families to get by. Add in outdated infrastructure and services, and it's clear Thunder Bay is facing a tough road ahead. The city is trying to reinvent itself with new industries like education and healthcare, but the progress has been slow. Right now,
this is a lot of the problem across the country
with an uncertain future ahead. Number 7, Corner Brook, Newfoundland and Labrador. Let's head over to Corner Brook, a small city that was once a bustling center for Newfoundland's paper industry. For years, the pulp and paper mill was the heart of Corner Brook's economy.
That's kind of the lowest common denominators that this video tells me.
Demand for paper has dwindled, so has the city's economic outlook. The decline of the paper industry has hit Corner Brook hard. Jobs that were once reliable have become scarce, and younger generations are moving away in search of better opportunities. In fact, youth outmigration is one of Corner Brook's biggest challenges. The city's population is aging rapidly, and with fewer young people to take up the slack, the local economy is struggling to keep up. Without
send them home.
To replace the lost
Hashtag
jobs,
make
remigration
great again.
Attempts to diversify the economy into sectors like tourism and small-scale manufacturing have been slow to gain traction, leaving the city stuck in limbo. And while the natural beauty of the area is undeniable,
I know this is why we're kind of watching it all together. I couldn't find a lot to disagree with, so I wanted others to corroborate or fact check it.
Demand just isn't there. People are leaving, and the local government is struggling to find.
The sooner they stop getting free stuff, the sooner they'll go back to the country they support instead of living in the country we support.
It needs a major shift in how it approaches economic growth. For now, though, Corner Brook's future looks increasingly
Yes,
uncertain,
Mira, very
with too few
badly.
opportunities to keep people from moving on. Number 6, Windsor, Ontario. Next on our list is Windsor. a
Can't
city
argue
that
with this
has
one
long
either.
been known as the automotive capital of Canada. For decades, Windsor thrived thanks to its close ties with Detroit and the booming auto industry. But as we all know,
Correct.
the auto industry has faced its own set of challenges, and Windsor has been feeling the impact. One of Windsor's biggest problems is its overdependence on the auto sector. When the industry is strong, the city does well. But every time there's a downturn, like factory closures, relocations, or automation, Windsor takes a direct hit. Thousands of people have lost jobs over the years, and despite efforts to diversify the economy, the city remains largely tied to this single industry. The unemployment rate here is consistently one of the highest in the country, and even when jobs are available, they're often unstable or temporary. The loss of manufacturing jobs has led to a shrinking middle class and growing financial insecurity for many families. Housing costs have started rising, but wages aren't
Correct.
keeping pace. While homes are still more affordable than in Toronto or Vancouver, Windsor's economic instability makes it tough for many residents to keep up with rising costs. This imbalance creates a growing divide between those who are barely getting by and those who are more financially secure. Windsor is making attempts to reinvent
Correct.
itself with a push toward education, tech, and green energy sectors.
I'm not going to say what he
But the
did, but
reality
correct,
is,
Brenda,
it's a
he
slow
is.
process, and many residents are still feeling the pinch. If you're living in Windsor, you've likely noticed the warning signs: job insecurity, rising costs, and an uncertain future. Number 5, Prince Rupert, British Columbia. Now we're heading west to Prince Rupert, a city that once thrived as a key port on the Pacific coast. Prince Rupert has always been known for its strategic location,
Mayor of Edmonton
handling
was a
shipments and
terrorist.
trade that connected Canada to the rest of the world.
He's
But
reformed.
today, things aren't looking as bright.
Coloring
for this
books and
coastal city.
crayons. Fixed him.
Prince Rupert's economy is heavily dependent on global trade, which has been slowing down in recent years. As international shipping routes shift and competition grows from larger ports, Prince Rupert has been losing business. The result? Fewer jobs in the shipping and transportation sectors that once made this city a critical player in Canada's economy. The lack of consistent trade and new investment has led to stagnation in the local economy. Young people are leaving in search of better opportunities, and the city's population
I know, right?
the industries that remain, like fishing and forestry, are no longer as reliable or profitable as they once were. This economic slowdown has made it harder for families to make ends meet and for local businesses to thrive. Housing remains relatively affordable in Prince Rupert, but that's mostly because demand is low. As more people leave, the housing market has slowed, and properties are sitting empty longer. On top of that, the city's infrastructure is aging, and without the necessary investments to modernize, Prince Rupert risks falling further behind. Efforts have been made to diversify the local economy with tourism and small business development, but progress has been slow. For now, Prince Rupert remains a city caught between its past success and an uncertain future.
Amen, Mira.
Struggling to find a path
Amen.
forward. Number 4, Campbellton, New Brunswick. Now we're heading to Campbellton, a small city in northern New Brunswick that's seen better days. Campbellton has long relied on industries like forestry and fishing to keep its economy afloat. But with both industries facing significant declines, the city's economic foundation
I'm Alberta
has started
beef.
to crumble. Campbellton's story is a familiar one. Job losses in its traditional industries have
100%,
left
Bill.
many residents struggling to find work. The forestry sector, once a major employer, has been shrinking for years, and the fishing industry is no longer what it used to be. With fewer opportunities, many younger people have packed their bags and left for larger cities, where jobs are more plentiful.
Those kids will all come home when shit goes
sideways.
sideways.
Aging population, making it even harder
Or try
for
to.
Campbellton to bounce back. The city's population has been shrinking steadily, and without new businesses or industries to attract fresh talent, Campbellton is stuck in a cycle of decline. Fewer young families means fewer consumers for local businesses, creating a ripple effect throughout the economy. Housing here is
Kinda are.
relatively affordable,
Everywhere.
but that's largely because demand is low. As more people leave, fewer are moving in, leading to a stagnant housing market and a growing number of
They're
vacant
waking up.
properties.
Our side is the
The
side
local
growing,
government
not
has been
theirs.
trying to encourage growth, but progress is slow, and many of the city's challenges seem too deeply rooted to overcome without major
Yes, they
investment
will.
or industry diversification. If Campbellton doesn't find a way to reinvent itself, it risks becoming another small city in Canada's ever-growing list of
Rural
communities
areas are
left behind
far
by
better
modern economic
prepared,
trends.
far better
Number three,
community
Timmins,
organized than
Next up
the
is Timmins, Ontario,
major urban
a city
centers.
that
So
built its entire
we got that
identity
when
around
things go
mining.
sideways.
For years, Timmins was a major player in the gold and mineral extraction industries, providing thousands of jobs and fueling
They're going
the
to
local
try.
economy.
They're
But
trying.
now, the once booming mining industry is in decline, and Timmins is struggling to adjust. The city's biggest challenge? Job losses in mining. As the demand for minerals fluctuates and many mines close or scale back operations, Timmins has seen significant layoffs. The problem is the city's economy hasn't diversified enough to absorb the shock. When mining jobs disappear, there's little else for people to turn to. This has led to high unemployment rates and a growing sense of uncertainty among residents. Adding to the issue is outmigration, especially among younger people. As job prospects dry up, many are leaving Timmins for larger cities in search of stable work. This population decline has left the city with an aging demographic and a shrinking workforce, making it even harder to recover economically. But it's not just jobs and population that are problems. Housing is another issue. With fewer people staying in the city, the demand for housing has dropped, causing property values to stagnate. While homes are affordable, that doesn't mean much when the local job market is so weak. Timmins has tried to pivot toward other industries like tourism and service sectors, but the progress has been slow. The city remains heavily dependent on its mining roots, and until it can successfully transition into a more diversified economy, Timmins will continue to face an uncertain future. Number 2, Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island. Charlottetown
Almost
might come
there.
as a surprise to see on this list,
I
especially
was
since it's
surprised.
the capital of Prince Edward Island and a major tourist destination. But beneath the charm and historical beauty, the city is grappling with a growing problem: housing affordability and an increasingly strained job market. Charlottetown has been attracting more people in recent years, thanks to its peaceful lifestyle and scenic views. But this rapid population growth has created a major
Nana Sue,
imbalance.
I
The city's
100%
housing
agree.
market is skyrocketing, and it's leaving many
We'll see
longtime
what number
residents
one
struggling
is.
to keep up. Home prices have soared, and affordable rentals are
Correct.
becoming harder to find.
Exactly. People
In
are
fact,
connecting
for a
dots.
city of its size, Charlottetown now has one of the most competitive housing markets in the country. While more people are moving in, the local job market isn't expanding fast enough to meet the demand. Much of Charlottetown's economy is seasonal, relying heavily on tourism and agriculture, both of which are unstable and provide limited year-round opportunities. The result is a city where housing costs are climbing, but wages aren't keeping pace, leaving many residents feeling squeezed. Charlottetown is also struggling with its infrastructure. As more people settle in the area, the strain on roads, healthcare, and public services is becoming more apparent. The city's rapid growth is outpacing its ability to support new residents, and without substantial investment, it's going to be difficult for Charlottetown to keep up. For now, Charlottetown's charm is still intact, but beneath the surface, the rising costs and economic challenges are painting a much less rosy picture for the future. Number 1, Cape Breton, Nova Scotia. Finally, we arrive at Cape Breton, a region that has long struggled to shake off the weight
Nailed
of
it,
economic
Nikki.
decline. Once a thriving hub for coal mining and steel production, Cape Breton's industrial days are now a distant memory. As those industries collapsed, so did much of the region's economy, and Cape Breton has been battling to recover ever since. One of Cape Breton's biggest issues is its aging population. As younger generations leave in search of better opportunities, the city is left with fewer working-age residents to drive economic growth. The youth outmigration problem here is severe, and it's leaving Cape Breton in a precarious position. More people leaving than staying, and not enough new industries being developed to bring them back. Unemployment in Cape Breton remains stubbornly high.
Perfect
And those
candidate
who
for a
do find
15-minute
work
city,
are
right?
often stuck in low-paying temporary jobs. The lack of economic diversification has made it incredibly hard for Cape Breton to bounce back from the loss of its traditional industries. Tourism offers some relief, but it's a seasonal fix that doesn't provide the kind of stability the region desperately needs. On top of that, housing affordability isn't the issue here. Demand is. Homes are relatively cheap, but that's because fewer people are interested in moving to an area where job prospects are so limited.
Even the
housing market
refugees won't
reflects
go
the
some
overall
places.
economic stagnation that Cape Breton is experiencing. Without significant investment in new industries and infrastructure, Cape Breton risks
Is this
falling
accurate,
further into
Mountain Man?
decline. For many living here, the struggle is very real, and the road to recovery is still far from certain. To wrap things up, we've covered some of Canada's fastest collapsing cities, but we want to hear from you. Do you live in one of these places or know someone who does? Let us know in the comments below. And if you found this video eye-opening, check out our last video on the 10 most hated cities in Canada. You won't want to miss it.
So now, honestly, guys, a lot of that is, clickbait, generic, get the likes, they get paid for views, yada, yada, yada. I was looking for genuine commentary. I think we got kind of on the same page with that. But one of the things that I wanted to highlight and why this story resonated with me was I think it was 2021, where I had a whistleblower from Windsor articulating the land steal there. And through the process of researching that story, we discovered this plan that overlapped all of the cities across the country that had closing mines of various precious metals, specialty metals. These mines were being shut down in all of these same places where the migrant pilot project people were being delivered to. So their economies were being destroyed while their populations were being enhanced, replaced, whatever the case might be. So here we are now 3 years later, and I'm looking at this list and ticking it off of the boxes of where these programs were to make this interconnective 15-minute city infrastructure network. All of these programs are oriented around where will they have direct, closest local, affordable access to the materials that they need to build their magic 15-minute technocratic, socially regulated Big Brother state security cities. That's kind of the thread, the overlapping thread. And so we've covered a whole lot, right from the United Nations, the censorship, through to the local assaults on that, and giving you guys a lot to chew on. This is going to be I'm not going to play this one, because I'm going to skip right to the last one, but I'm going to add it to the Substack, and I am going to just talk about it for a minute or two. Most of you guys know Viva Fry by the Do, of course, and he was on here. This is just an 8.5-minute video, but with Mr. Barnes explaining that a lot of people are taking out of context this apparent abuse of power given to by the Department of Defense, authorizing people to use lethal force on civilians. And this is an explanation of why that's being misconstrued and it is not accurate. What they are doing is they are restricting agencies from using lethal force against civilians unless the orders come from the DOD. So kind of flip don't read into the panic that the military authorized use of lethal force on the population. No, this is exactly the opposite. And I'm going to add this clip to the Substack for tomorrow, and you guys can catch up to that one at your own time. And let's see here. I still got a bunch to go through, but I'll kind of skip through the tulips here on this. Remember this guy, Nathan Erskine Smith, the guy that was on here a couple of days ago insulting our intelligence, calling us stupid ignoramus, conspiracy theorists, and everything with his liberal, arrogant nose, telling us that Bill C-293 is nothing that we think it is, and we're all retarded, even though he is one of the liberals fleeing the damn ship. So I'm not going to play this one. We played it the other night, but I'm going to add it to there because this is the segue to this little clip that I'm going to make you listen to. Good thing it's only about 30 seconds.
You're
And I'm
making
going to
money
make
at Brookfield. You got your UN envoy role. You don't need to throw yourself into the Pierre Poilievre attacks and the Michael Barrett saying conflict this and carbon tax Carney. And why insert yourself in this way now? You're making money at Brookfield.
So this is interesting. We've got this this swamp zombie. I'm going to stick with what works. Spending an hour and 15 minutes with none other than Mark Carney. So I'm going to leave that up to you guys. If you guys want to hear what it sounds like to listen to these two pathetic weevils having their little witches summit on their podcast to try and pretend like we don't exist, and Mark Carney is actually this wonderful leader and dude. So I'm going to leave that one for up to you guys. We're not going to cover that tonight, but this one I wanted to share with everybody because this one hits the heartstrings a little bit. This is what courage and intellectual honesty looks like. Thank you for this. The account is the Sovereign CEO, Karla Joy Treadway, and I'm going to open this up and read this to everybody because people are so discouraged. Why aren't people waking up? Why aren't people waking up? Why aren't people waking up? Well, if you're on a 4x2, listen in closely to this statement from this lady. I am so grateful I woke up from whatever that was that I was under. Whatever hypnosis that was that I was under. I apologize to conservatives, to religious people, to the mothers who were questioning the medicines and foods we gave our children. I didn't realize how out of touch I was and how manipulated I was by the media and culture in general. I think it's really important for people to set aside their tribalism and admit when they were wrong. So I'll go first. 4 years ago, I thought conservatives were bad, rich, white, corporate people who hated the poor. I hated Trump. I believed what Canadian media said about him, and I probably couldn't tell you one single thing that he did wrong or didn't do right. I pretended like I knew what I was talking about when it came to politics, but the truth is all I cared about was not voting conservative. I had such strong opinions about it, and maybe I even thought I had done my due diligence. But the truth is, I would open up the political platform days before voting day and read between the Liberal and NDP parties' platform highlights and choose from there. I had no idea and no business voting. I hated the churches and thought religious people were brainwashed. I felt superior in my spiritual practices, as if I knew better than thousands of years of peaceful people gathering to worship Jesus. Meanwhile, I was drinking, I was partying, and filled with anxiety and depression while I did these Band-Aid Eastern wisdom practices that temporarily fixed small problems. I thought the anti-vaxxer moms were crazy and uneducated. In 2019, I went to social justice trainings because that was the thing back then, and this is where I started to wake up. Not only did it not make sense, it so clearly made things worse. And then I woke up, not all at once, bit by bit. It started with the visceral feeling that the sometimes well-meaning social justice trainings were manipulative and encouraging division and hatred over healing. then the pandemic and how the media handled it, then the illegal and corrupt actions of our government, then the realization that these medicines were causing more hurt than harm, then my deep dive into understanding politics, geopolitics, politics, and the world's history. Then I met Jesus, and then everything else spiraled into place after that. I didn't just switch teams. I'm not on a team. I'm just very, very aware of history, the inner workings of politics, how the medical system works, and what I need to do to have a good life. I know what it's like to be a good person who simply doesn't pay attention to the world beyond the surface of what media shows. There are many of us now. Be patient with people. They can change. And that one, proud of that lady. And I'm, that's when we meet people where they're at, that is the opportunity that presents itself to you. I careful here, that almost made me leak. I'm going to post that in the Substack tomorrow, for sure, guys. One real quick announcement before I leave us off with something that's going to make you all laugh. So on the 28th of October, I've been invited to a election mashup live stream covering the Saskatchewan election on October 28th, starting at 6 p.m. And it's going to be kind of a swinging table of some really awesome people, very interesting, 222 minutes, Quick Dick McDick, and who else we got here? Lisa Marie, Lee Harding, myself, JL Hobridge, and more to come. So we'll make sure that you guys get an opportunity to plug into that. Yeah, I'm still a little choked up. So, oops. So the last thing I'm going to leave everybody else with is this awesome clip, and I'm going to sit here and chuckle with you guys, from Glenn Beck. And you guys are going to love this. Enjoy it, and I'll try not to interrupt too much.
McDonald Gate.
It's so funny,
McDonald's
guys.
Gate is really bad, Stu.
Really bad, Stu.
Well, what do you mean? No, it was a nice moment.
No.
Here's a guy a billionaire who goes through the McDonald's hiring process.
Do not spread any more mis or disinformation. Here's the audio of Trump managing the drive-through.
You do know these guys are kind of mocking stuff, right? They're loving this. They're loving this.
This is not a normal situation, is it, huh? I'll tell you what, good-looking family. How did you produce those good-looking kids? Oh, they look like the what? They look like the what? How are you? Nice to see you. That's great. Thank you, man. Thank you very much. Thank you. And there'll be no charge. Trump is paying for it. Is that okay? Oh, you ordered some extra stuff. Oh, okay. This is all on Trump. Oh, all on Trump. I'm allowed to do that, right? Yeah. Let's check. Make sure it's everything you said it would be. It better be. It's going to be the best you ever. I made it myself.
Now, as cute as that is, here he is, quote, working, end quote, the Fryolator.
Okay.
You guys at that time, or bring that one up. I'm gonna take care of these.
He's training.
And he's done making fries. Making fries. Okay. Now, I found out after I was bamboozled by this video.
Yeah.
I found out today from the press that he didn't actually work at McDonald's.
What do you mean?
This is so funny, guys.
Is that a deep fake?
This was a publicity stunt.
Publicity stunt? You don't say.
Yeah,
really?
No. The people in line, they were all selected. So they weren't just strangers driving up to the drive-thru. No. They checked to make sure that they were the right
these
people,
guys are
and
just
you know
having
what I
a
mean,
blast
the right
clowning
people.
around. I love it.
No, people without guns.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So they
They screen them. Has that ever happened to you at a McDonald's drive-thru? No.
Glenn, I have to tell you this. I worked at McDonald's. It was my first job.
I know.
At no point did they screen customers to come up
Yeah, I know.
and make sure they were people
I
that
know.
I liked or supported
I
me in
knew
any
you
way.
were gonna be
These were just
angry.
random people
Yeah,
who
right.
walked into the McDonald's
Right.
and came up and put in the order of
And I
food that
bet
they wanted at
you-
that time.
I bet you had to go through an application
Yes,
situation.
I had to do an
Maybe
interview.
an interview. Then you didn't just walk in and say, "I'm here to work."
I'm
at
having a hard
McDonald's,"
time.
And then they hand you the
They're
apron.
cracking
That
me.
happened that way.
No.
That's the way it happened with him.
So he didn't take the
No.
test beforehand.
They did. The McDonald's
Yeah,
test.
well, they have a little like, hey, review thing, if I remember
Oh,
right,
really?
from back in the day. Like,
Right,
you know,
okay.
they give you kind of a walkthrough.
So
And
it's kind of like a test, kind of like, are you crazy? Are you going to shoot us? Are you doing
no, that was not
it's
actually
that.
required at all. They didn't
All right.
care about that. They just wanted to make sure I could make the fries.
Okay, good. No test. No test.
This is a disgrace.
It's a disgrace.
After all I went through to get that job, this guy just walks in there.
Yeah.
And by the way, you got to get up in the organization to be working the drive-through. It's not like the first thing you're doing.
No.
You know, this guy
No.
just skips
all of it. Skips all of it.
This
He was
is unbelievable.
He was like practically the president of McDonald's.
How did they uncover this stuff?
I don't
Because
know.
there's video.
Good journalism. Good journalism.
I guess so. Because
Yeah.
you're not saying the video is AI, right? They're
No,
not
no,
saying
that's
that.
real video. They're just saying the whole
The
thing
whole
was a
fake. What a
fake,
scam!
yeah.
I'm voting for Karla. She's the only honest person who seemingly worked at McDonald's, but has
Well,
no evidence of it whatsoever.
No, yeah, we don't think she worked at McDonald's.
We don't
But
think
that's okay.
That's
She just
okay.
doesn't have any.
Totally okay.
Yeah, she just doesn't have. By the way, here is the crowd in front of the McDonald's. Look at this. I mean, thousands.
But Kamala said she was getting the crowds. Trump wasn't getting the crowds, Kamala said.
I've never seen an election like this.
Too funny.
It is crazy. Nuts. It goes on and on and on and on.
Really, it's an impressive crowd. I mean, look, Donald Trump has no problem getting crowds to come see him. People
to
love him.
stand across the street from the McDonald's.
I wish I was dedicated enough for anybody to do that. I can't think of anything. Maybe if they were releasing a new McFlurry, I might do something like that.
By the way, let me just, because I want to be fair and balanced. Let me just put in
Yeah.
this message. Cut 5, please. This message from Kamala Harris.
And when we all sing happy tunes and sing Merry Christmas and wish each other Merry Christmas, these children are not going to have a Merry Christmas.
Oh, no.
How dare we speak Merry Christmas? How dare we?
Wow, that connects with me. You know, that really pushes me toward her campaign.
Yeah.
You know, I just am like, wow, I also despise all of our traditions and things that make me feel good about our country.
What else can you do but
goodness,
laugh at the stupidity of these guys?
Gosh,
Right?
I feel so in line with Kamala. Now that video is a little bit old, but I don't know why she's not bringing it back up.
I know.
It's just such a
It's
it's
just
a powerful message.
It connects.
Your Christmas memories are disgusting.
You're
He's revolted by your holiday.
Yeah. Now, Kamala, and I'm not sure if it was here in this clip or another that I watched, but apparently McDonald's officially denied the fact that Kamala ever worked for them. So I don't know. There's that anyways to consider. But Trump did.
Yeah, that's great.
Here's cut 12.
Should never again have the privilege of standing behind the seal of the President of the United States.
God.
Wow,
This is the typical Democrat mistake.
Yeah.
This I learned more
32 days. 32 days. 32 days.
Because you get more desperate. It gets everyone behind you goes, you're not being assertive enough.
Total
And I'm telling her
clown
this all the
show.
time, and now she's out there screaming with that voice.
Do you have the one where she's saying it like this was spontaneous.
This is my entertainment,
Okay,
guys.
okay.
So I'm
You just
sharing
had
my
to-
my
you just had
my
one up
favorite
with, 12 boxes.
entertainment for the day.
Control room. Yeah, play this.
I feel bad for you. Sorry, Mira. I do.
Wait, it seems like she's just saying the same thing in venue after venue after
Yeah,
venue after
but
venue.
she brings that anger with her each time.
Yeah, it seems like she pronounced all the things. Did she emphasize the things the same way?
Out of 450 million people, right?
Behind the seal of the President of the United States. Never again. Never again.
Such a dumb season, right? Like it's like
Maybe they went to the same drama
We were
classes.
the dummies. We fell for Donald Trump actually
That's what I
looking
meant.
at
That's what I meant, of course.
Yeah.
Was that
how
such
could
a
we dumb season? How could we be that stupid?
Are you a little surprised? Because I think Democrats really looked at the Hillary Clinton thing as something they should have won, right? Like they believe 2016 they should have won that election.
Well, they did no
and blew it.
They did no introspection. There was no thought after, like, how did we lose this?
Well, see, I thought there was, and I thought that's why they started with joy, right? I mean, I know it was BS.
No, I think they started with joy because that's what actually was said about the Republican Party.
Funny.
Everybody was saying that. Don't you remember?
Saying what?
They were saying it was so joyful. It was like happy.
Oh, at the
Republican convention.
So they just copied them.
And so they were like, we can't let them have joy.
See, I thought it was more related, and you might be right. I thought it was more related to the sort of approach that Biden brought to the table, and Hillary as well, which was this constant.
We all have our marching orders.
5-alarm fire.
I can help, Mara.
Oh my gosh, get on the
Thanks
edge of
for
your
being
seat.
here. We got your
Democracy's
back too,
crumbling,
best
blah,
we
blah, blah.
can.
And they stayed away from that messaging for the first month or two of her campaign.
Yep, because
which is interesting.
They were. Here's the other thing, and Donald Trump.
I know, that's creepy to me.
I mean, this is a huge change. Donald Trump has captured the magic, the
joy,
the
fun, the giggles.
While she's like,
yeah.
While she's doing that, he's having fun.
Yeah, I feel like they tried the joy thing, got a little burst, it faded, and now they're realizing it's empty calories.
Yeah.
And now they're like, well, what do we do? And their only other page in the playbook is scream about the loss of democracy.
Yep.
And I just don't think that connects with the American people.
They got space. Joe
I
Biden
feel like
stopped
people are like,
today.
"All
He
right,
quit,
we
gave
got
up,
it."
threw in the towel. He's not
They
helping
might
her
have
anymore.
Really disliked everything that happened around the election. They may have really disliked January 6th and all those things. But come up with an argument. Come up with an argument that's not just you repeating the same things you've been saying every day since 2015.
Yeah.
Right? It's not even since 2020. It goes back to his initial thing. They were stealing elections. Russia was helping him steal elections.
Yeah.
Democracy's going to die because Vladimir Putin's going to come in and fix the voting machines. But it's been constant.
Mhm.
People are just bored of it. Bored.
Mhm.
And they don't believe it.
Well, they don't believe it this time because she's so credible. Like yesterday when she went to church.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Sunday. Here's before she just
Does she?
she walks into just walking into a church and just kind of I'm just there to meet Jesus. Oh, wait a minute.
This one just offends me. You're trying to politicize people's faith while she full well knows that she protected Planned Parenthood when they got busted for selling baby parts and instead prosecuted the journalists who blew the whistle on the butchers of babies. So that's who she actually stands for and represents. So this always offends me when I see this. Just me.
I shouldn't have brought that up. No,
I agree. She needs an exorcism. So do we. A few.
Revolting.
Thank you. Celebrating the birth of Jesus is a disgusting thing, but let me go to church real quick. It's so fake.
Yeah. Well,
so fake.
100% so fake. Kamala, the entire Democratic Party, and the whole sham charade is nothing more than a media construct from the Democrat and Mockingbird mercenary propagandists and their illegitimate foreign dictated edicts of censorship for your safety and all of that. The brain children behind things like 293, C63, yada yada yada. So yeah, that's a wrap. That's the last thing I got for everybody tonight. I hope that was an interesting tiptoe through the nether regions of the swamp. Not all hope is lost, guys. It's time to get strong. I know you're all tired, but do it tired. It's kind of just a a simple way to look at things. There's nobody else going to do it for us. So, but our side is growing. Thank you guys for all hanging out with us here tonight, wherever you are, doing whatever you can with whatever you got, wherever you're at, and looking after each other along the way too. So this is all a community more so than don't do this for the entertainment. Don't here to do this to make friends. I do this to try to be useful, to sift some of the noise from the news and give everybody the best stuff that I can find that not everybody else is necessarily maybe looking at, and maybe fighting for some underdogs along the way, because I only have one damn country. So yeah, but I love you all. You know where to find the stuff, the details, all the graphics, the pictures, the links, all of that stuff will be in the Substack tomorrow morning. That is a place to get it for free. Get in a fight when it comes to scrapping C293. Gets to know Mark Carney, the next king. He will be anointed. He is the WEF Fourth Reich parachute in fixer, sent here by Uncle Klaus and the World Economic Forum to protect their interests in the public-private partnerships that is Canada. So it's going to be interesting times, but it's up to us to know what we need to do, where and when, the best way possible. We're going to be covering a lot of other stuff. I'm going to do a U.S. election night special as well, guys. I'll talk about a little bit more of that probably later in the week, but no, won't forget my folks, friends, family, prisoners, and patriots down there in the U.S. as well. So a little bit more. I think we're going to have a couple of other guests by surprise this week. If you have something important to send me, whatever that might be, or even if it's just a question, even if it's just you think it's just important to you, don't be shy, don't be scared. Might take me a little while, but that is the best way to send it. And guys, independent, authentic media and journalism, the fight for free speech is the guts to be the last stand for humanity. And it's the one thing that we all across the planet have is our voices. And if we don't exercise them, we's in way worse trouble coming than what we're on the precipice of. But support your independent journalists, and this is the best way to support me. There's other ways to do that. You can $8 a month on Substack if you get plugged in there. What is that? 50 cents a show, maybe less. Help out with a direct donation. This is how we keep this free for everybody. And thank you to the ones that have, do find the value to throw a $8 a month subscription up down there. And I think I've done all of my due diligence tonight. I don't think I have anything else for you guys except, huge gratitude. I love you all. Gonna have some specials coming up with our other partners. And I wish there was one thing that I wish people would take more time to research and actually understand and ask a question if you're unsure. Don't run away from our Patriot Switch friends. There's more than meets the eye, and I'd rather ask a question and deal with concern than see people continuing to be stuck with the toxic brews of the commerce agenda to depopulate us through commercial marketing products. But save that for another day. But I'm going to close you guys out with our Patriot Switch. You guys know where to find all of our partners. Get plugged in for precious metals on What's Up Canada website as well. Talk to Bryce. Love y'all. We'll see you same time, same place tomorrow.